Good morning. Good morning. Still doing a little bit of cleanup. We had some dishes last night, and they need putting away. Uh, but somebody's here, so I will, at the very least, chatter while I do so. If you're here for the pre-show, you'll notice this big green thing. This this massive green thing. This was labeled as an avocado. I've never seen an avocado like this. It's smooth. It's quite firm. It rattles a little bit when you shake it. Feels like the pit in there is loose. I did a little bit of reading. I think it's sorry, I'm in the next room because I've also been cleaning the house, so some things are in weird places. I've been doing a little bit of reading about avocados because I always knew that there were a bunch of different varieties of avocado. I've just never seen them because they don't grow anywhere near here, so we only get the one popular kind that gets imported. Those little Haas avocados. And I looked it up so that I would know the name of it, and now I can't remember the name of this thing. It's another type of avocado. It's a choquette. I'm pretty sure it's a choquette avocado. The interesting thing is, it's easily 4 times the size of a regular Hass avocado, but it was only twice the price. So assuming that it's not all pit, these might be a good deal. We'll also see how it is texturally. I feel like it might be less creamy. Hi, Bookwoman, welcome in. I feel like it might have less of that creamy avocado-ness inside. From my little bit of reading, it sounds like the bigger ones are lower in fat, which would make the flesh less like buttery. But we'll find out. Here's the the tricky bit for my plan today. As you may have seen in the title, avocado toast. Well, that requires toast. I don't have any bread. I'm trying out a recipe that claims to be, now I don't have a stand mixer, so it's going to be a little bit longer because I have to knead it by hand, but it claims to be 30-minute bread, which seems absurd. Ooh, sorry, I'm a little bit it's a dreary, wet morning, and it's I think it's giving me a slight sniffle. So bread is on the menu because I need something to toast to make my avocado toast. I also have a plan for this thing because I was doing a little bit of research and I think I know what to expect when I cut it open. But we'll actually have to see when we get in there if it's anything at all like what I'm imagining. If it's not, we'll have to on the fly it. I've also got this especially lumpy, bootylicious tomato, fresh from the garden. Not my garden, but a garden. Nearly there with all these random dishes. Oop, this has to go in the collection of glassware. My glassware is on temporary leave in the other room because I recently had some new acquisitions, which I showed off at one point, and they've caused my overall glassware to overflow the cupboard a little bit, so I needed to reorganize and prioritize which ones I want in the main cupboard. I did not steal it. It was a gift. One of my friends has grown tomatoes, and they've all of a sudden, as tomatoes do, massively produced tomatoes. And I was gifted one particularly lumpy one. Yeah. And the cutting boards, which at least one of those needs to stay out because I'm definitely going to use it. Wow. I've been on a cleaning spree. And it has, in fact, spilled over into every room of the house, including the kitchen, resulting in a little bit of extra tidying and clutter just now, because I didn't take the time to do this in advance. Also, I don't know if it'll pick. It probably won't pick up because this thing has a pretty good noise gate. But there's a thunderstorm happening right this moment. I'm not getting any morning sunlight from my window. It's dark and rumbly. Just okay. Step one. I'm actually got a full recipe up here. We've got a recipe by Sugar Geek Show that claims to be okay. Well, 30-minute bread plus 35 minutes of resting time. So an hour from raw flour to bread. That's still very quick for an actual loaf, not little flatbreads. So let's see if that works. Regardless of what else I'm doing today, I am making that. Something that used to be here that I moved, and now this is too high. It's supposed to be here. Oh, it was that fish list. Turns out my fish list was out of date, so I threw it away. I had one of those sheets of these are the good fish. These are the not so good fish. But those get updated all the time. Mine was out of date. Okay. Bread. They call this fast bread. Not quick bread. It is a yeasted bread. And I'm going to make a half recipe because it's supposed to make 2 loaves, which is a lot. So I'm going to attempt to make a half recipe of fast bread. Get it in a nice big mixing bowl. This calls for milk. And the milk needs to be warmed. So we'll go do that. 8 ounces of milk. It's going to be a little bit of a weird hybrid because parts of all of it's in imperial measurements except the yeast, which is only listed in grams. But then it has gram translations of it as well, and I'd much rather use the grams. Um, let's give that a minute in the microwave. Oh, sorry. All of a sudden, I got a sniffle. I thought ahead, and the flour tower is out and about before I've even started. I wish this had an angle on it, because if I put the bowl there, you guys can't see the weight on the scale at all. Um, oh well. Measuring out 400 grams because it calls for 28 ounces. So I probably should do it by weight in that. So 14 ounces. This needs to be resifted, I think, or at least whisked to loosen it up. Okay, 14. If I take this off, you won't be able to tell, but 14 ounces of flour. I'm glad it's doing it by weight in the imperial measurements, so at least I can do everything by weight. I have come across far too many bread recipes in my recent readings that do everything by volume, and it really baffles me that that's still kind of chilly. Well, the milk itself is pretty warm. Let's see how warm it is. Here's our milk. We're supposed to use warmed milk with 2 tablespoons of sugar. Here's my sugar. To wake up our yeast real fast. But it can't be too warm or it will cook the yeasts. 90, mid 90s. I'm going to warm it up a little bit more. I'm just going to give it a jolt of 20 seconds. There's also we're using sugar and warmth to wake the yeasts up, and also it 100% insists that I use instant yeast, which I have. It's the main yeast that I usually keep, but we're clearly going all in on getting this yeast to rise fast. I've never done a milk-based bread before, so this is a new experience. I don't know that I've even eaten a milk-based bread before. Stir that around. It smells like warm milk. 112. That seems good. We're also using quite a bit of yeast. It wants 10 grams of yeast. And it says 3 teaspoons. So let's do 1.5 teaspoons of yeast. Since I'm having this recipe. And 2 tablespoons of sugar. I keep my yeast in the fridge because it's supposed to make it last longer, but it also makes it kind of go to sleep. So I hope that doesn't come back to bite me. My guess is that the volume that's in here is so small compared to the volume of the rest of it that it'll warm up very quickly, especially when I add that heated milk to it. Okay. Sugar don't rest it on top of the fridge door. I don't have a good place for the sugar. The jar I used to keep my sugar in is on leave because I wanted to switch jars, but I didn't actually come up with a backup, so I've just got a bag of sugar. Let's whisk this together with the large whisk. Before I put the liquid in it to get all this grainy stuff incorporated and break up a few of those little lumps I noticed in the flour. Okay. It also wants some salt. Which now that I've got the yeasts spread out a little bit, I can safely add the salt without smothering the yeasts in salt. That's one thing I do know. When you're adding your salt, you don't want to dump it right on top of your yeasts. The yeasts don't like salt. We add the salt for flavor, not for anything to do with the structure. Milk in. Oh, shoot. I need my stirring device. I should probably just move that whole jar in here. The jar of my cooking tools got moved to the other room. Now I keep walking in there to grab them instead of just moving the whole jar back in here. Oh well. Maybe one day I'll learn. What's a quarter cup to tablespoons? 2 tablespoons of butter are going to go in this as well. I should probably get that ready because it needs to be liquefied. And that can be melting while I stir this together. I'm going to put the little other dish right on top of it to hopefully prevent it from exploding on my microwave in the event that I lose track of it. Or perhaps those two pieces of glass will burst apart and I'll have a shrapnel to deal with. Okay. It's a bit of a strange bread recipe as far as I am concerned. I've never done a bread that has milk, I've never done a bread that has butter, and I've never done a bread that has egg, because this one also is going to have an egg wash. Get the dough coming together. I feel like the butter is going to help. This dough is quite stiff. And the recipe continually refers to a stand mixer with a dough hook. So that's another issue I've got. My dough hook is my wooden spoon in my hands. Ah, see if that butter is melty. Yeah, that was perfect. Now, I believe that yeast also does not like a lot of extra fat because it gets in the way of their ability to get to the water that they like. But here we are. Oh, Saizen. Yes, I would like a stand mixer. There are some things that I would like to make that would be 1,000 times easier if I had a stand mixer. Um, Pastries, breads aren't that hard, so I'm not like super busted up about not being able to have it for bread. But some things, yes. The stand mixer, the food processor. Felix is here too. Uh, yes, that was a very large whisk for that small container. I'm just going to bring this whole jar back in here so I stop walking out of the room every time I need a new tool. There's a reason I put all my tools in that jar. So the stand mixer would be mixing this for me, getting it together into a good blob, and it would keep mixing it until it got itself into a dough. And it wouldn't worry about stuff sticking because it would just keep pushing through. So we're going to pretend to do that, but with my hand. For those of you just joining us, we're attempting to make fast bread. This recipe claims to make bread in half an hour, although it uses a stand mixer and does not include the rising time in that half hour. So, tell you what, this dough is coming together quite well. And then we're going to deal with this thing here. I'll put it on the side. I'm very impressed with this dough already. It's not sticking to me at all. It's smooth. It's a little bit springy. It's not quite smooth yet, but it's definitely smoothing. I'm going to switch it, get it out of that pot, the pan already. This is an avocado. Oh, I don't have room for anything. I don't have room for the things I have. So no, I don't have room for a stand mixer. Get this guy out here. But that is one avocado. I've done a little bit of reading, and I'm pretty sure it's a choquette avocado. Whereas the kind we normally get, the kind that everyone's familiar with, are Hass avocados. It's strange. It's bright green, looks like it's not ripe, but it's already developing brown spots, and those spots have developed since I bought it. So I guess that means it's ripe enough. It's very firm, very hard. I can't give it like the squeeze test. So I guess I'm just going to cut into it and see what I find. When I shake it, I can feel the pit rattling around a little bit. I got it from one of our local grocery stores, Woodman's Food Market. I don't think I need any more flour. This dough has come together really well. I don't know if that's. I'm actually going to scrape away some of this flour and not get it incorporated. I think this is Lenny. So yeah, found a weird avocado and I want to eat it. And I wanted to make avocado toast, but I don't have any bread, so I'm going to attempt to make bread. We're mimicking 5 minutes of stand mixer. So yeah, I'm excited to see what's inside of that thing too. Here's the interesting thing, and I'm hoping it's not just all pit. It could just be all pit, but it's around 4 or 5 times the size of a Hass avocado, but it was only twice the price. So if it's not all pit and there's actually a good amount of flesh in there, these things could be a great deal. I know. I'm killing the diamond industry and the real estate industry and the automotive industry, but you know what? I have to stay true to my millennial roots. Avocado toast is the food of my people. Let's see if I can't smooth the surface of this thing a little bit. It's a little bit of a lumpy dough. It smooths out. You just gotta kind of push around. This is what I always dreamed dough was. You can just like you poke it and it bounces back a little bit. It doesn't stick to anything. It's this nice silky smooth. This is good. If this actually works out as promised in the recipe, This is a revelation. If this turns out to be inedible, I will have to improvise. I do have other things on hand. I've got eggs. I've got a butternut squash, or not a butternut. This kind, acorn squash, um, which is the same size as the avocado, which is crazy. Who's been timing my kneading? I'm going to say that that's been enough time. The surface of the dough is very silky smooth. When I poke it, it bounces back. So I'm going to say that is ready to rise. Pop it in the thing. Grab a tea towel. And we need you to double in size, my friend. Oh, sorry. I think it's this rainy morning that's giving me the sniffles. So I'm going to save this recipe if it works, because this is neat. Anyways, let's find out what's inside this thing. So normally when I cut an avocado, I would cut it this way and roll around and then twist it open. But this is so large and hard that I think I'm going to do it circumference-wise. Also, I did have a peek about what I think to expect in there. Oop. Oh man, it's all brown. Huh. Weird. It doesn't look like it's... I'm going to taste that. If that's... I don't think you're supposed to have that brown ring in there. I think that's over the hillness. But I'm going to taste it anyways. It's stiff. It's crumbly. Huh. Well, it's very dry. And get out a trash bowl. For the pit. I don't think it's unsalvageable. Here's what I've got to say about it. It's quite dry. The skin literally peels away from the flesh, like this. which is also bizarre for an avocado as far as I am concerned. That brown ring is tough. It doesn't taste bad. It's just tough. The yellow part is crumbly and dry. The green part tastes underripe. I think that this avocado might have been picked too soon, is underripe, and then started to go off on the shelf before I even got to it. And the brown spots I was seeing was this brown layer poking through to the surface. I'm going to try to get. I, I don't think you can just use this like a regular avocado, like a Hass avocado. I don't think it is even in the same food category. Uh, it's a strange vegetable. Jen! Oh, you subscribed. Sorry, it took me a second to register what that was. Jen subscribed. Amazing. Thank you so much. I really should get an actual alert so that something pops up when that happens. Uh, one of many things I should do. Thanks so much. We're welcome in, Jen. We're currently exploring this bizarre thing. Eh, it's more like an avocado toward this end. I think parts of this are going to work. Yeah, okay. Up toward the stem end, it's got that creamy. It's got that creamy avocado flavor. Um, it's a strange thing. Let me tell you what. This is a strange old thing. Let's. Because I can just rip the skin off. This thing is called an avocado. Oh, I didn't get to go to my farmer's market. There's a thunderstorm out there. Uh, I got rained out. But this thing is an avocado of a variety that I have not seen before, and I wanted to try it out. And I think that it's not supposed to have this brown part in it, and it's over the hill. But it also feels like it may be underripe, so I'm wondering if they just picked it way too early. And it tastes, parts of it taste good, parts of it taste like vegetally underripened, um, like grassy. Uh, it's quite dry compared to avocado. I'm trying to get all this peel off because I want to try to get something out of this. In my reading, I think this is a choquette avocado, but it is a very strange duck indeed. Oh my god! All of a sudden, I have an itch in my eye. Maybe I've got allergies. I don't normally have allergies, but a weird sniffle and an itch in my eye. So the brown parts, I've never had ragweed problems before, so, and I was fine yesterday, and I had all the windows open yesterday. If I just take a slice up here, it's still got that brown layer all the way through it. The thing is, it doesn't taste bad. It just, that brown layer is very tough for some reason. Very, very fibrous. Hmm. Well, I've had one vote for bin the avocado. Um, it's. I'm wondering if because that brown layer is so fibrous, I might be able to scrape the other layers away from it, even though it looks like it's all contiguous. It doesn't feel like it when I get in there. But this yellow layer is like weirdly crumbly and kind of tasteless. Huh. It might have been overripe, but I feel like it was. I don't know. I've never had this kind of avocado before, so I don't have a baseline to judge it. Um, I know the small avocados are hard when they are underripe, and then they go mushy. Darn, I was quite interested in this one. I hate to. I actually can. It's almost like a shell. Uh, but I actually can scrape the yellow part away. Again, weird texture. I was expecting it to be lower in fat because that was the main thing I read about the avocados is that big varieties are lower in fat than the small ones. So they don't have that creamy texture that the small ones do. And I was expecting that. Anyway, what I was hoping was if it was all nice and edible all the way through, I was going to make slices of it and try to fry them because I knew it was going to be. I knew from the reading that it was going to be kind of dry. Um, it might make yucky whatever. That's definitely a possibility. Every bite I had didn't taste bad. At worst, it tasted bland. The only problem I have is that this brown layer, which is honestly making up a good bulk of the interior of the avocado, is just very fibrous and I can't eat it. So, and the green layer, huh, huh, taste that. Well, tell you what, I'm going to say $3 wasted. Wasted. A tragedy. It was only $3, so it's not a huge loss. But I'm actually going to say, nope, it's not worth it. The part that I scraped out doesn't taste like anything. It has a weird texture. The green part does not scrape loose from the brown part. Only the yellow part does. And the green part has a unpleasant, underripe flavor to it. I think that this avocado was underripe when they picked it, and also sat around long enough to start spoiling. I think we've got the worst of both worlds here. It was only $3. I may give them a chance in the future, but I'm going to be a little more discerning instead of just grabbing one. Pictures of this variety of avocado online show a lot more of the yellow part and none of the brown part. So I feel like it was picked too soon and that green layer is supposed to recede. Here. The green layer is supposed to recede toward the skin, and the yellow layer form the bulk of the interior as it ripens, and I think these were picked much too early. Or that one at least was picked much too early. Okay, well, I do have a backup idea. Let me clean my knife. You give a sub to Toka. Thanks for gifting a sub to Toka, woman. Enjoy your new subscription, Toka. Well, I mean, if you were intending to not gift a sub, then I suppose, but gifting a sub is a nice thing to do too. Okay. This acorn squash was in fact my backup plan all along. No, you misunderstand. You can't give me a sub. This is my channel. You subscribe yourself, or you give somebody else a subscription to my channel. Were you intending to renew your sub? Is that what? If you're in my channel, all the subs you buy will go to me. Bam. Squash ring. Yeah, gifting subs gives people subscriptions to my channel, and then when they show up, they get all the perks of subscribing. But you yourself paid their way. It is nice with these little the lobes around the edge, but you can't eat the skin on these things. So take a peek at my bread. It's rising slowly. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I sure appreciate a gift sub, and I'm sure Toka will also appreciate a gift sub. Ugh. I'm gonna cook it. Okay, this was my backup plan. My backup plan was squash rings. Let's get the big flat bottom one. If I can get two of these side by side in there. We'll do two of them. Oh, that's too thin a slice. It's fine. It's fine. Those seeds out of the way. Use the paring knife, not the big knife for this part. Okay, okay. It's a good thing I had a bad feeling about that avocado to start with, and prepared a backup. We made very different thicknesses on those slices. Okay, a little bit of oil in our pan. I will just use my fingers to spread that around. And then use my fingers to oil the tops of our squash rings. Yes, I made an executive decision on the avocado because although I was getting some usable flesh off of it, it didn't taste like anything. The flavor was so nothing. The texture was weird and crumbly. What I had hoped, I'll explain exactly what I had hoped to get out of it is, I should change the title. Because the avocado was quite large and I could feel that there was a loose seed in there, I had hoped to be able to cut rings of avocado like this. Let's change the, and then get an egg in there and put that on my toast. But yes, we have given up on the avocado because it was just not worth it. Here's the mess of avocado. It is unfortunate, and I think the culprit is that it was picked much too soon. And then all after being picked underripe, sat around because you can pick an avocado underripe and it will ripen, just sitting out. But if you, that only works to a point. If you pick it too early, they won't then ripen. They have to ripen to a certain point on the tree before you pick them in order for them to finish ripening on your counter or in a box or whatever in storage. I think this one they picked it early and set it aside expecting it to ripen, and because it had been picked so early, it never did, and it just got spoily. So yeah, that's my backup plan. Did I bump my camera? I think I bumped my. Eh. Sometime soon, all these cameras are going to get pulled aside because I'm on a tirade of cleaning the house, and this room is on the list. So what we've got here is just oil and acorn squash rings. That was my backup. I had other things I could have pulled out. I've got some banana blossom left over from the kare kare. I've got some mushrooms. We could solve this. The main event, despite the title, the main event of the avocado toast was actually the toast. I knew that whatever else I put on it was not going to take nearly as long as the toast itself. This fast bread, I should probably preheat my oven. Yeah. Okay. I got plenty of acorn squash to go around in the event that it's I make any mistakes. Our dough is getting bigger. I don't think it's quite doubled. Um, it's not quite as warm because we have a storm this morning. It hasn't warmed up. It's still quite cool. Let's see what my temperature actually is. Yeah, it's still pretty comfortable cool inside. In I am making bread. That's the first thing we made. You weren't here. You weren't here for that part. Here, I'll show you off. Um, so the first thing we did before we dove into that avocado was start this guy, and he's nice and springy. This is a recipe I've never done before that claims to be 30-minute bread plus proofing time. So, and it takes me a little longer by virtue of having to do it by hand instead of with a stand mixer. And I don't have a warmed proofing spot. Ordinarily, I would put it right over here. If you can see me on the little camera, right over here where there's morning sun streaming in this window, and it would get sun, and that would help warm it up. I've done that with other breads. I've just popped them right there, and they got nice and warm. We have a thunderstorm this morning, so there's no morning sun. So we didn't have that. So it might take a wee bit longer. I was actually gonna put it. Let's see. When I do turn the oven on, I get a bunch of residual heat coming out the top, um, near the burners. So I'm putting it on the top of the stove over there. Oh, I will check it out. This is if this works the way it describes and produces a nice loaf. That's fast bread. Got my cooking sticks. Give these acorns a quick flip flop. Eh, there we go. I wish I had cut them the same thickness. There. Let's get my egg ready. I think that the acorns want to be on a lower temperature. I think I'm cooking them too quickly because they need to soften, not just brown on the surface, because squash is pretty firm stuff. Um, as mentioned, if I screw up the squash somehow, I've got plenty more and lots of time because we still need to bake the bread, which should take 25 minutes, according to this thing. I think all ovens vent out the top somewhere to regulate their temperature. Probably that one. I think if you pull the top off. I'm dividing my attention. I was going to whisk this. It's Tiny Whisk. He's here to save the day. He's whisking our egg for us. I think if you pull the top off of your oven, you'll find a vent hole that lets it expel heat, and it's underneath one of the burners. At least in this kind with the coil. Egg. Tiny Whisk. I was watching a cooking show recently. I forget which one. I've been watching a bunch of different ones recently. And they pulled out Tiny Whisk and ridiculed it, and I was appalled. Tiny Whisk is an all-star. I could hardly believe someone disrespected the Tiny Whisk like that. Ooh, these are coming along nicely, and they're getting easier to pick up as they soften. Um, yeah, having differently sized whisks. I was over here. Having differently sized whisks, I think it's just a good idea. Um, as mentioned before, I used this enormous whisk in this tiny bowl. Oh, like so. And it was really awkward. Well, the tiny whisk is still here. We whisked this egg tinily. I think that one ring is too thin. Um, I may have. I've got plenty of time. Um, I may have to cut another squash ring and make sure it's thicker because if I want to put an egg in the middle of that thing, oop, thank you for the moisten. Oop, thank you for the moisten. It's important to stay moist. Okay, that one's probably too thick. Uh, I don't really have any other ideas for channel points at the moment. That one's probably too thick, but I'm going to get a whole egg in there at least. Uh, Fortunately, squash is quite robust. I've been holding off on sound commands. It's a good idea, and I've got some ideas for sound commands. But I've been holding off on sound commands because I can't hear sounds, which is why you've got no sounds at all coming from the system. Because the way this stupid thing interacts with this headset is it won't send sound both directions. I would love to have sound alerts for when people follow or sub or stuff like that, because then I could be facing away, thing pops up, and I'll hear it. Yeah, that one's definitely too thin. It's breaking. Come on, get out of there. Get out of there. Uh, so I need to solve my audio problem before I can dive in on sound things. But that is a good one. I'll write that down. I'll write that down. We can have tiny whisk. I'll do the guitar riff myself with my voice, or I'll badger one of my friends into doing just a half-second guitar riff um, and record it. And pay them fair royalties and include them in the credits. Because just because you know somebody who is working in one of the arts does not mean you can take advantage of their art skills for your own benefit. I'll get off my soapbox now. I'm going to taste the one that, this one. Oops. Yeah. We're going to taste this guy. I think he's cooked. There's such a thin slice. Squash is very forgiving. That's cooked. Um, Ooh, exposure. You know, I've heard you can buy food with exposure. I mean, gifts are always appreciated. Oh, uh, as I was saying, squash is very forgiving, so I'm not worried about overcooking the squash as long as I don't let it go so far that it burns. That's the only factor. Uh, Ideally, that one's going to be the one we work with. I think I need more oil for the big guy though, or I probably need to get that one out of there, and then I'll have room to maneuver the big one. I think that's the issue. This is working. This is going to be a tasty thing. It is kind of another starch that I'm going to be putting on top of bread, but it's sweet and squashy. I'm going to get this guy out of here. Oop, get my plate over here so I'm not flailing it all the way across the kitchen like a fool. We're going to get that guy out of there. And we're going to drag that through the oil. And, and then flip it to get it started on the other side as well. Okay, okay. I think we do need just a dab more oil. And I'm going to put it right in the center so it has a chance to hit that whole thing as it. Yeah. Okay, so the acorn squash does soak up some oil. Keep that in mind. For those of you following along at home, keep that in mind. What we're going to do with this is that opening in the middle should be just right to fry an egg in. We're going to have like egg in the toast, but egg in the. Oh, I'm on the wrong side again. Um, that thing, that whatchamacallit, egg in the nest, where you punch a hole in a toast. But I'm going to do it in an acorn squash ring and put it on top of toast. I don't think that even when cooked very, very well, the skins are remotely edible. Eh, toad in a hole's different. Toad in a hole is a sausage dish. I know that. I think a toad in a hole is a Yorkshire pudding with sausages in it. Yeah, something. It's some English sausage bread thing. I could do toad in a hole. That sounds. That could be fun. I don't do. English food because English food is weird. The English are the strangest eaters in the world. The heck is that? Oh, well, good job, spider. There's a spider directly above me here who has captured a mosquito directly above me. And what I have to say to that is, good job. You've earned your rent. I never even noticed the mosquito. Okay. My uneven slicing of this thing has caused this part to not touch the metal. Hey! Back to the countertop. Look at that guy. He's gotten big. I don't know if that's exactly doubled in size, but it's close-ish. So let's move on to the next step of that. Let's see. Move my sliced egg. I'm gonna have to do something with this rest of this acorn squash because now that it's cut, it's not going to keep. When they're unsliced, acorn squashes and most squashes really, really keep well. But now that I've cut into it, I'm definitely gonna have to figure out what to do with it. Let's see. I'm supposed to put this just on a flat tray. Yeah, with parchment paper. Can do, weird bread recipe. We have a tray. And we have somewhere. No, that's wax. That's pellicule transparente. Parchment. Put that there. This guy should be able to turn out without needing any flour. Yeah. Oh, he's so fluffy and light. I'm following recipe. Following recipe. According to this, the recipe could be used to make buns, hot dog buns, dinner rolls. So I'm supposed to push it down a little bit and roll the rough edges in, and it immediately kind of split the top. Really? This dough doesn't want to stick to itself very well. That's perhaps an issue. I don't know. The dough. Now it's dough on a little tray. And then this part, I feel like this warble is going to cause some problems, but I don't want to knock this completely flat because we're not doing a second rise. I was just supposed to shape it into a loaf. Well, that's why it's experimental. The interesting bit, I was supposed to give this an egg wash. Which will make it hard to discern when it's done. Because the egg wash is going to brown very quickly. Which is the goal. When you put an egg wash on something, it's for browning. And the recipe insists that I give it some little slashes. And then we're going to stick it in the oven. Sorry. Let it rest for 5 minutes after shaping. Probably because it expects me to have shaped it a little bit more aggressively and knocked some of the air out, and it wants to poof it back up a little bit. The slashes will also help that weird warble from just bursting open when it bakes, and tearing the top. I'm hoping this works as well as I. Yep, I'm following the recipe. I'm following the recipe. I'm trusting the recipe. I've hecked up before where I've tried to modify things. Not this time. The recipe is very promising, and I. Ooh, okay. Our squash ring. I got the camera pointed at the part where there's nothing happening. Our squash ring is browning nicely. Our big risk at this point, I think, is that the bread will like tear or split somehow, especially along the bottom, because there's a weird seam at the bottom. There's a bit of a weird seam at the bottom, and it didn't stick together. The surface was quite dry, not like dry. It was like not sticky. So yeah, basically, I'm slowly cooking a squash ring so I can get an egg in it, and everything else should be fresh ingredients except for the bread. Oh, thank you for the moisten. Always important to stay moist. Let's get a few of my dishes at least thinking about starting to get wet in the sink so that when I get to them later on, they aren't all crusty. Okay. Uh, that, and yeah, okay. I'm going to credit, once again, I mentioned right at the beginning when I started, but there's more people here now. Sugar Geek Show is the source for this bread recipe that I'm using. That's been 5 minutes easy, so I'm going to stick this guy in there, and we will check him at 25 minutes. Fingers crossed. I don't have my timer ready. And Google has foolishly gotten rid of its in-browser timer. Oh no, it brought it back. Okay. Briefly, Google had gotten rid of its in-browser timer, which was just. Anyways, okay, that's ready to go. This just needs to soften up. I do think that these first couple of slices I did are nice. The skin is actually almost edible on the thinnest one. I did a little taste test. I was trying to get the skin to peel off, which I think might work on the big one. If you've ever had stovetop sweet potato, that's kind of what this acorn squash is doing right now for me. It's sweet. It's got a. It's not extremely sweet, but it's a little bit sweet. Well, it's noticeably sweet. It's not really sticky on my fingers, but it's got a sticky taste to it, if that makes sense. It does need something. One thing it needs is salt, which actually probably would help it cook a little bit faster too, or soften up a little bit faster. Get in there, flip. Oh, the part that wasn't touching is now doing okay, so that's good. This thing is going to be ready to receive an egg real soon. Squash, egg, bread. Tell you what I'm actually going to do. I'm going to take that heat off because squash is pretty forgiving. So I should be able to turn it back on and then do the egg in it. I just don't want to do the egg now because the egg will be overcooked by the time the bread is ready. Because it's 20 minutes. Also got extra egg wash, so I could make a little scramble on the side. This also feels too starchy, like I need a veggie element to it. And I this weird here I'll not everyone was here at the beginning. This bootylicious tomato with its runs in its tights there would be a good addition to my plate, I think. It's going to be a little bit awkward to cut. We're going to get some weird pieces out of it, but it'll be tasty, that's for sure. So I think that's going to be our fresh element, and it's also going to, strangely enough, it's going to bring our savoriness to this because the squash is sweet, the egg is kind of a neutral flavor. We were going to have some savoriness from the avocado, but now we're not going to have that. Tomato is going to bring our primary savoriness. I also want to spice the element, so I'm going to go ahead and prep up a hot pepper. I need to find a way to store these peppers better. They were perfectly crispy dry when I dried them last fall, and they held, but then when the humidity picked up in the summer, they went from crispy dry to kind of leathery. As you can see, it's having a hard time getting a hold of that one. I think my storage solution was not quite airtight enough. And they picked up a little bit of ambient moisture and went from chili flake to chili leather. To the point where I can't even really grind them in my mortar anymore. I have to use this thing. And they stick in there a little bit. Yeah, this was a homegrown, not my home. I was gifted. It was gifted me by our good friend of the show, Fox Familiar Farms, who has an abundance. Gonna have to re-dehydrate these things because they've undehydrated themselves. What I need to do is replace the gasket on that jar I've got them in. It's I'm sure that's the culprit. It just doesn't have quite the seal when it was new, which is, of course, the danger of getting jars from Goodwill. Okay. Our slightly leathery chili flakes, to which I'm going to add a pinch of salt and a grind of black pepper in an effort to help them dry out a little bit more. Oh, you know what I should... Oh, I don't have any. Maltodextrin would make that, would fix that. I should get some maltodextrin. 10 minutes in on our bread. I don't want to peek at it at the moment. I'm just at a stage of kind of chit-chatting. So, angle's too high. So, what's new? Select a nice egg. I have been on a furious cleaning spree. This cupboard right here is completely empty because I picked up some new glassware that didn't fit. So I took all my glassware out and I'm going to reorganize. And then that thrust me into cleaning other stuff. Um, so I kind of started at the far end of the house there, working my way toward the kitchen. So the kitchen hasn't been reorganized and cleaned. I I know some people have noticed it. I want to clean that up. There's a little crack in the wall there. Uh, uh, but that was the big project yesterday, and it's probably going to continue today. Although I can't take rugs outside and beat them if we're having a thunderstorm. So we may restrict the scope of the project today and resume it in earnest tomorrow. Uh, but yeah, we're at that kind of awkward phase of cooking where I've got something that I need to wait on. Uh, let's dump my compost scrap bucket. A real tragedy that the avocado did not work. I was quite interested in trying that thing properly. Uh, I do not think it was a fault of the variety on hand, but of careless picking and improper shipping. Oh, well, I guess I'll just squish it then. So the spider did not do his job. He caught the mosquito, and then he did not eat the mosquito, and then the mosquito escaped and was standing on the wall next to the web. So I squished it. Um, I think the mosquito was eating my parsley because it was all green. Well, speaking of eating my parsley, I should eat my parsley. Uh, oh boy, I need something to kill time with. I don't have any new gadgets or yeah, I've always heard that there are other varieties of avocados that we only get much like with bananas and mangoes and a lot of those tropical fruits. There's hundreds of little sub varieties um, that you just never see. We see it in America with things like tomatoes, where there's a whole bunch of different kinds of tomatoes. Um, but we only ever get one type of avocado brought in. We only ever get one type of banana brought in. We only ever get one type of mango brought in. So I was excited to see a different kind of avocado for sale because I really wanted to try it out because I know they're quite different. I've had a chance to try some different mangoes, and those can be very different. I I had a trip to Guatemala, and while there, we stopped at a local market and we got a mango that couldn't be sliced because it was so soft. They told us the way you eat it is you clip the end off and you squeeze the flesh out like a toothpaste. Um, I've never. I imagine that it's so soft that you could never ship it. Um, but it was very good. Uh, the kind of thing you can only get when it grows where you live. Uh, so I know that these things are out there. And To their credit, my local grocery has. I'll have to go get the glassware if I want to show it off. I can show off some of my glassware. It's in the other room. Um, to their credit, my local grocery has gotten 5 different kinds of bananas, which is fun. We're in the echoey room now. I don't know if you can hear the echo. Some of my odd glass. So this thing, I know this is specifically for something, and it's not just a giant sake glass. But I'm not sure specifically what I'm supposed to put in it. Decorative heap of citrus fruits. And I showed these off once before. These little baby glasses for, I guess, small amounts of wine. Um, isn't a tiramisu a cake, like a square? Bananas. So the varieties that I can get locally are the big yellow ones, which are Cavendish, and they're the ones that are actually being threatened by the Panama disease outbreak right now. So uh, Cavendish might start drying up in terms of supply at local stores. My cord is trapped. The other one the other one that I see most frequently are plantain, which is a kind of banana. Don't let anyone fool you into thinking it's a different thing. Um, those have been around for long enough to be pretty much a staple item. The red bananas, which are about yay big, a little bit less than half the size of the big yellow ones, those are pretty good. They're a little bit sweeter, but it's harder to tell when they've gone ripe because the skin is red before. It's not that it goes from green, because the yellow bananas go from green to yellow, so you can really see when they're ripe. The red ones go from like this rusty, dark greenish red color to red. So the change is much less abrupt, obvious. Um, the little Thai bananas, which I think I've seen both Thai bananas and mini bananas, which are not the same thing, because I've seen them both at the same store at the same time next to each other. Um, but I couldn't tell you what the differences are, except that they have a different cost. Uh, so the Thai ones seem like they're a little bit smaller than the mini ones. But yeah, so there's a whole world of bananas out there, and frankly, we should be enjoying all of them, not just the one that is the most commercially viable, because then we get a situation like we've got right now where there's a disease outbreak that's killing the one variety that's been over farmed because we've got all these huge monocultures. And and then we run out of it. And the same thing happened with the previous kind of banana, which was the Saint something. I'll look it up. Saint banana, the Saint John. Nope, the Saint something. No, it was the. I don't remember what it was. Does anyone know off the top of their head, or are better at their Google oogle foo than me. The previous kind of banana that died out because it got a disease because we were monoculturing it globally. 5 minutes on my bread timer. I'm going to bring the heat back up on my squash, just a little, not full blast. Gros Michel, that was it. That was it. They're not completely extinct. I did some reading about that. There's a greenhouse in, I think it's in England, that preserved some. They have extremely strict bio protections around them, but they've got some that are still alive. Obviously not commercially viable. I'm putting my glassware back. I'm about to get into more cooking. Um, Obviously not commercially viable if you need to keep them in a biocontrolled greenhouse, but someone's preserved that thing. I imagine you couldn't. The workers there probably still can taste them, but there's got to be no way that you'd ever get a hold of one of those. Oh, I'm cracking an egg into a bowl. I'm doing a terrible job of it. Okay. Cracking an egg into a bowl because I don't want to crack the egg directly over my ring when I get that far. I want to just slide the egg right in place. 3 minutes, according to my timer on my bread, and then I'll take a look at it. And I will also pull up the recipe, and it says 25 to 30 minutes until golden brown. You can use a thermometer to check the center if you don't trust the golden brownness. I have a thermometer. Actually, I have a longer probe thermometer as well. Where did I put the long probe thermometer? Nope, that's just the box for the long probe thermometer. This one. This one has a very long probe. So I might use that one as a quick checker for the interior of my bread. Okay, we're coming up to it. We're coming up to it. Move things. Let's see, move that guy. Our pan needs to be hot enough that the egg will set when I pour it in there and not run out the edges. So egg, stove. Under a minute. Get myself ready. We're coming up to it. Moment of excitement. The other interesting part here is that it doesn't, like bread typically needs to rest quite a bit. This one claims to produce a loaf that you can eat right away, or at least with minimal resting time. Okay. Okay. Beep, 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 beep. Let's see what it looks like in there. Oh my God. Look at this thing. I'm going to take its temperature. Ooh, it needs a little bit more. The probe comes out clean. I'm going to give it 5 minutes more. It's just a couple degrees below where it said it wanted me to pull it out. So I'm going to give it just a couple minutes. It is very pretty. Get a timer. Egg wash gives me a nice thing, but the egg wash also means that you can't necessarily judge its doneness just by looking at it, because the egg wash will always give it that brown exterior. It does give it that nice shiny brown exterior, but it always gives it a nice shiny brown exterior. We're definitely very, very close. My probe read 177, and the recipe says 190. So we definitely need to bring that up. But we're within 13 degrees. This is going to be my last time I can flip this using the long sticks here, because there's going to be an egg in there. I need to get a flipper. So we're very, very close on the bread. It sure looked good. I hope the bottom looks as good. It had a little bit of a foot. Like how a macaron has a little foot. That bread had a little bit of a foot, which I wasn't expecting. It's very pretty. It's very picturesque. I am going to take photos of it. I'm definitely going to take photos of it unsliced. I should get that ready. We're going to prep. We're going to prep the photo station right now, because it's such a gorgeous little loaf. Are you too hot? I don't think so. We leaked out a little bit, but not really badly. Wish that yolk would move toward the middle a little bit. I don't want to peek too much because it'll let all the heat out. I think this pan was slightly too hot for this application, but we're committed now, so get all the sides unstuck. Okay. That's okay. Um, Obviously, acorn squash is less spongy than bread. If you did this with bread, it would soak in around the edge a little ring that would then seize in place, and you wouldn't get that spillage that I had. This method relies 100% on the egg itself setting in time to allow or to seal the ring. But it didn't leak out after the flip, so we're good on that front. I just need it to be stable enough that I can get it out of there. I clicked off of my timer. The timer is at 1 second. I think I clicked back onto my timer. It was at 1 second. Okay, bread. You can't see it because of that paper and the handle. The bread. We're testing it again. I got 188, which I'm going to say is close enough. We're within 2 degrees of the target. Now, that egg's fine. You're panicking for nothing. We just need to get it off there because now it's stable enough to move. Bread. It's hot. I got a funny seam on the bottom. Sounds nice and hollow. Very photogenic on the top. It definitely needs to cool off a little bit before I slice it because it's too hot to touch. But that's off. That's off. I need photos. Bear with me, folks, because we need photos. Where did I put? No, of course. The thing got moved. I keep wandering off because everything's been moved by me. Lots of photos. Lots of photos. Lots of angles. That side looks a little pudgy. One side looks perfect. One side looks a little pudgy. My camera doesn't want to focus on it. There you go. I'm glad that those slashes did what they were supposed to do and prevented that little weird warble from tearing. We're back. We're back over here. Behold, my baby. The child. Uh, Ideally, I would let this rest for another half an hour to cool off, but I really want to get in there. This doesn't give me any sort of resting time. I think it's just a matter of resting it until it's... Oh, there's a bunch of notes at the bottom. Oh. Okay, there's a bunch of notes at the bottom of this recipe that I did not follow because I didn't realize they were down there. You can use water instead of milk. You can use oil instead of butter, which would have been more convenient. Um, you're supposed to add a tablespoon of water to your egg wash, so it's not quite so eggy. Mine's just egg. Um, it also has instructions for modifying the recipe to use active yeast instead of instant yeast. Interesting. This was a pretty easy. This was a pretty easy recipe. Overall, I don't think that not reading those notes was a problem anyway. It's nice and hard on the top. Good crisp crust. It's very hot. This part is a little bit weird. We had a little seam right down the middle, right down the butt crack of the bread. It's nice and hollow on the bottom. This is the foot I was talking about. The bottom set and on the top lifted off, just like a macaron. But only a little bit, and only around the edge. The slashes here worked perfectly. I was worried you could even see the crease. This weird crease here would tear open. But it did not. These slashes did their job and kept the top together, even with a funny crease in it. So, yeah, yeah. Or if you look at it in that direction, it's something else. The surface is cooling off enough that I can handle it, which is good. We need to assemble my actual plate of food. This wasn't just a let's make bread and show off bread. As much fun as it is. By the way, guys, I've been having a load of fun with bread. I've been discovering bread. Not just the no knead bread that I had been making before, but full on bread. And we made a bread. Guys, I don't know if you realized, we made a bread. We've only just gone and done it. Yeah. Already rinsed my scrap bowl, which is not ideal. It's cool enough to touch, so I think I want to try taking a slice. I've been waffling about because I want it to cool off a little bit because the starches. So when you make a bread, the starches kind of liquefy which is what lets you get that foamy interior. Which is why temperature and gas and all that sort of stuff is important. It's a lot like what happens inside of a kernel of popcorn when you're popping it. The starches all liquefy, and then that allows it to make that nice foam. Same kind of thing happens in here, but you don't want to cut into it while the starches are still liquidy and mobilized, because you'll ruin your crumb, which is why you're supposed to let bread cool off. So really, I should let this cool down until it's just warm, not hot. It's still pretty hot. You can see the edge of my egg wash on that side. It's still hot. It's obviously not so hot that I can no longer touch it, which is a good sign. So I'm just kind of, I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to cut the tomato. We're gonna set it aside. We're going to cut the tomato first. We're going to figure out how to cut this tomato. And that's going to be what takes my time before I dive into that bread, because I don't want to ruin it. At this stage, when we've got such a nice thing, I don't want to ruin it. How do you start on one of these beasties? I kind of just want to take that side off. It's very ripe. It's ridiculously ripe. Come on. Come on. Get that edge started. There you go. There you go. Okay. Extremely ripe. Ready to go. Tomato. We can take another piece off of that, I think. Guess I'm going to be eating tomato for a couple days. Oh. Okay, 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 okay. The rest of the tomatoes set aside. This is going to be enough tomato for my plate. We've got our egg. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to do it. Crazy. This is part of the reason I need to reorganize my shelves, is I've got stuff. We're going to use the square plate, which is going to be there. Yeah, okay. Sorry. A lot of silence all of a sudden. Not really the best viewing to suddenly go totally silent and stare at things. Since I've got tomato juice on that board, I'm going to cut the bread on this board. Ooh. Fully cool enough to touch. Still very warm, but I can just handle it casually now. So I'm going to say we're close enough that I can get a piece out of it. It's not what I was expecting to see on the inside, actually. It sure smells like bread. Um, there's no bubbles. Also, I'm not toasting the bread. I'm just going to have it as bread, despite the title. Huh. You know, I was expecting there to be little bubbles in there. Let's, it did have a short rising time. Hmm. It tastes like bread. It's a little bit dense. It's a little bit dense. I think the shortcutted rising was the issue. I think I should have that. I could follow the same recipe and just be sure to give it a nice warm spot to rise in, and then not be afraid to punch it down a little bit when I take it out when I retrieve it from there. It definitely works. I think I'm not disappointed in it. I'm actually quite pleased. We got bread in. It took me 2 hours, but it took me. I'm reasonably pleased. Let me take one more slice. See if I can find any faults with it. The bottom is very crusty. The top is more like a shell. Um, but yes, the rising time. The thing is, the pictures of this from the website that I got the recipe from show it having a very, very fine crumb, but not quite like this. It shows it more foamy. So I'm not sure what happened differently. I'm not going to plop that guy there. I'm not going to plop the stuff on top of the bread. I think I'm going to give the bread a pat of butter. Humidity could also be a factor. It's a stormy day. Uh, of all the days for this to be the bread day, we got one where it's not sunny, so I don't have my warm spot in the window. It's really wet. Um, it's like I'm sure that those are both factors that have impacted the bread. Um, let's see. I've got this kind of butter. While it's still warm, nice and warm, we're going to take some butter and awkwardly arrange it on the top there in a haphazard manner that's not very artistic. Good job, me. This is a spreadable olive oil butter blend that's with some salt, so it's eating butter, as opposed to my stick butter, which is cooking butter. And our chili, salt, and pepper sprinkle. And a sprig of parsley. You can't even see that. It's over there on the side. I did it on the wrong side. We'll move that. This is what I was talking about. This right here. This is my plate. We've got our chili, salt, and pepper sprinkle. We've got our freshly baked buttered bread, our tomato, our sprig of parsley, and our egg in the hole in the acorn squash. Get some photos before I dive in on it. A lot of photos at the same angle because I think I've only got one perfect angle on this plate. Oh, okay. Final stage, and it's a good thing because I'm hungry. Oop. Okay. Get out a fork. I don't think we need a knife for this. Butter is, yes, softened to the point where I can just easily spread it across the bread, but not liquidy to the point where it's melting all over the place. Let me take this opportunity to get rid of this cutting board so I'm not fighting with the cutting board for space. Move this up to center stage. Readjust the stupid camera again. Okay. So, freshly baked bread with butter. This is the test of any bread. Good flavor, solid flavor, winning flavor. The bread is a tiny bit dense, but it has on-point bread flavor. I think the one change I would make is giving it a little bit more rising time. Everything else is great. It's good. It's nice and tender. It's not doughy in the middle. It's maybe on the edge of doughy, but it's I maybe want to give it 5 more minutes. The bottom is a really nice crust. The other project we did today was this thing, so we'll taste that one. Thank you for the moisten. Let's moisten up. Always remember to stay moist. This thing, which bread will also help us sop up, assuming my yolk is still runny, which it is. There's my runny yolk right in the middle there. Perfect. A little lid pops right up, and there's a runny yolk that I can dunk bread into. Uh, but I'm going to carve out a little chunk of the side with a chunk of the egg, and we'll see how this actually goes as a pairing. Ooh, ooh, interesting. So the thin edge with the egg, where it leaked underneath a little bit and got lacy, also went crispy. So there's a little crispy edge of egg around the outside of this nice tender egg in the middle. And the egg actually goes really well with the sweet, slightly starchy, and this is coming right off the skin too. So there's no issue about escaping the skin. Take that lid piece. Mm. That's a really good compliment, actually. And it comes pre-ringed because it's just the middle of a squash. That's a really good combination. I may have gone a little overboard on the chili pepper. It is definitely spicy, but I've got butter to balance that out. Another test of a bread. I'm going to go get the butt end here and just break a piece off, and give a dippy in my yolk. Mmm, nice creamy yolk. Mmm, very good. And our final element, the tomato, which is going to taste like a tomato with some seasoning on it, which is going to be delicious. So don't know what else to say about this thing. Mm. Ooh, actually, I have something to say. It's a surprisingly bright. It's a light tomato flavor. It's a bright and a light tomato flavor. It's not that heavy tomato, like raw tomato savory flavor. It's a surprisingly like summery. It's a summery flavor. It's light. It's fruity. It's not just tomato. I wonder what variety this is. I'll have to ask our friends over at the farm. Um, Fun fact: I mentioned this last time I did tomatoes. It needs a pinch more salt, just salt, not my pepper salt. I mentioned this last time I made tomatoes. If you put salt on a tomato, you have made MSG because the glutamic acid in a tomato combines with the sodium in the salt to make monosodium glutamate, MSG. So if you're ever afraid of MSG, it happens in food just normally because those things are in foods and they combine and they make MSG. That's why salted tomatoes taste so good, is because it literally turns into MSG in the thing. Which is why I don't put much stock in people who are like, I don't like added MSG. Well, it's in normal foods. If you react to the things that it's in naturally, then fine, you've got a reaction. But if you don't, then you're imagining it. Anyways, that's our show. Got a little bit of a cleanup Actually, I don't have that much cleanup. Um, we did a lot of standing around and waffling. Uh, I want to eat this while it's still nice and warm and delicious. So I'm going to fast track our little ending here. Get us back to the main show. My hair has gone. I need a haircut. I want to just buzz it all off and give up on this thing. Um, oh, thanks, Jen. I do try. I'm hoping to get some actual, like, substantial improvements. Oh, um, let's see who's on right now. We can. Ooh, how long have you been on? Mute that tab, please. 3 hours. I'm gonna take a chance. We're gonna go see Mom Games Hard, who is playing a game I've never heard of, but I've never had a chance to raid Mom. So we're gonna go say hi to Mom. Mom doesn't stream a ton these days. She got if I recall, she got a job that interferes with her old stream schedule. Um, I used to watch her more often. Um, yeah. So thanks for coming out. Thanks for the resubs. Thanks for the chit chat. Thanks for the moisten. Always remember to stay moist. This was delicious. This was a good adventure. I think that bread recipe is a success. I will jot it down, and I'll jot down my changes, my proposed changes. Yeah, yeah. I think we had a good show. I appreciate everyone who showed up. I appreciate everyone who stuck around. Um, I'm not gonna bother stretching this out. See you next week.